What's up everybody, Damon here, and in today's gaming news, Ubisoft comments on the early performance of Assassin's Creed Shadows, and both Monster Hunter Wilds and Civ 7 get big updates. This is your Daily Fix. There is enormous pressure on Assassin's Creed Shadows to do well for Ubisoft after a number of delays and the sales failure of last year's Star Wars Outlaws. Indeed, Ubisoft has suffered a number of high-profile flops, layoffs, studio closures, and game cancellations in the run-up to Shadows' release. Things have gotten so bad at Ubisoft that its founding Guillemot family is reportedly exploring talks with Chinese megacorp Tencent and other investors on a buyout deal that would let it preserve control of the company's intellectual property. So, the gaming world is watching Assassin's Creed Shadows' early performance closely for signs of success or failure. So far, Ubisoft has yet to announce a sales figure, but has said Assassin's Creed Shadows hit 2 million players just 2 days after launch, surpassing the launches of both Origins and Odyssey. There's also a lot of attention on Shadows' Steam concurrents, which are being compared to those of other AAA single-player games that recently released, as well as previous Assassin's Creed games on the platform. Shadows became the most played Assassin's Creed game ever on Steam over the weekend, with 64,825 peak concurrent players, although it's worth noting that it was the first game in the series to launch day one there since 2018's Odyssey. BioWare's single-player RPG Dragon Age the Veilguard saw a peak of 89,418 players on Valve's platform. It's hard to make a call on whether Shadows is below, meeting, or exceeding Ubisoft's expectations without knowing what those expectations were. But a source from within Ubisoft, who revealed an internal email reviewed by IGN, has helped us better understand the game's first weekend performance. Here's what we found out. Shadows delivered the second highest day one sales revenue in the franchise's history, behind only 2020's Valhalla, which launched across the last and current generation of consoles and benefited from stay-at-home gaming fueled by the pandemic. Shadows also marked Ubisoft's best ever day one launch on the PlayStation Store, suggesting particular success on PS5. But what about PC, given Shadows launched on Steam as well as Ubisoft's own digital store? According to Ubisoft's internal communication, 27% of Shadow's total activations were on PC. Ubisoft is telling employees that Steam played a major role in Shadow's performance on PC, without revealing exact sell-through numbers. It says early results, quote, are a strong validation of our decision to return to the platform. Shadows was also the most wishlisted Ubisoft game of all time, and is doing better than any other Assassin's Creed game on Twitch, even Valhalla. It's here that Ubisoft's internal communication provides context on comparisons between Shadows' launch and other games in the franchise. What's clear is that Shadows is not doing as well as Valhalla did at launch, but Ubisoft is saying it's not fair to compare the two because Valhalla benefited from the perfect storm of pandemic-fueled stay-at-home gaming and the launch of the Xbox Series X and S and PlayStation 5 in 2020. The internal memo reads, Valhalla launched under extraordinary conditions in the middle of a global pandemic with widespread lockdowns and brand new console hardware. It was a perfect storm we may never see again. That's why it's more meaningful to compare Shadows to entries like Origins, Odyssey, and Mirage, games released in more typical cycles. And in that frame, Shadows is already setting a new bar as illustrated above. Ubisoft also pointed out that Shadows released in March. Historically, Assassin's Creed games launch just ahead of the US Thanksgiving window, which typically boosts sales. Money talks, of course, and irrespective of player number and engagement, it will be revenue brought in by Assassin's Creed Shadows that determines the fate of not just the game, but Ubisoft itself. We may not get a clear picture of that until Ubisoft's next financial report in the coming months. Moving on, Capcom has announced Monster Hunter Wilds Title Update 1 comes out on Thursday, April 3rd. In a showcase video, Capcom confirmed the release date as well as what players can expect from Monster Hunter Wilds' first major post-launch update. The headline here is the Grand Hub, a new gathering place in which players can interact in new ways. Here you can play a new mini-game called Barrel Bowling and listen to the diva perform at night. Muzitsune, a Leviathan monster with dangerous bubbles, hits Monster Hunter Wilds with Title 1 update. Arena quests where players can compete for fastest completion times launch with Title Update 1. Free content is coming to all players, including classic gestures from the series. At the end of May, a collaboration with an unannounced Capcom game arrives in Monster Hunter Wilds. A second title update for Wilds is set to be released in the summer, and Capcom teased what to expect with an early glimpse of the arrival of a new monster. The latest in Capcom's long-running monster fighting series brought in some big numbers with its launch, and with Title Update 1, the company will be setting the cadence for how it moves forward. And finally today, Civilization 7 developer Firaxis has outlined the game's crucial Update 1.1.1, which hits at a time when the recently released strategy game has fewer players on Steam than Civ 6 and even the 15-year-old Civilization 5. On Steam, Civ 7 has a 24-hour concurrent peak player count of just under 17,000, which isn't enough to get into Steam's top 100 most played games. Civ 5, released in 2010, had a 24-hour peak of 17,423. Clearly, most Civ fans are sticking with 2016 Civ 6, however, which had a 24-hour peak of 40,676 players. In a post on Steam, Firaxis listed some of the additions and refinements coming with Update 1.1.1, including quick move functionality, new natural wonder Mount Everest, additional UI updates and polish, settlement and commander renaming, and more. Quick move is now an optional setting you can toggle on in the game's menu. It makes it so units move to the destination immediately so you can play through the game faster. Another big update is the new start position option related to map generation. The new default for single-player games is standard, which feels more like Civ 6, where the continents are more varied and less predictable. For multiplayer games, the balance setting is retained to put players on a level playing field on more consistent maps. Settlements and commanders can now be renamed. Historical accuracy be damned. You can now restart the game with the click of a button to get that perfect first settlement. Just like in Civ 6, it recreates the map with new seeds but with your same leader and Civ selections. Firaxis said it's still working on Update 1.2.0, currently planned to deploy in April. The developer plans for additional UI refinements, a one more turn option to continue playing after a game-winning victory, and more. Civilization 7 has proved a controversial game among series veterans for some of its new mechanics, and clearly it's struggling on Steam. The console makers do not make player numbers public. Civ 7 has a mixed user review rating on Valve's platform and received a 7 out of 10 in IGN's review. In a recent interview with IGN, Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick acknowledged that Civ 7 had received some negative reviews from press and players, but insisted that the legacy Civ audience will come around the more they play, and called Civilization 7's early performance very encouraging. And that's your Daily Fix for Tuesday, March 25th. Now that you're caught up on the news, I wanted to let you know that Humble Choice is running a big $8 sale using code MARCH2025. Choice gets you a curated mix of PC games every month. It's usually $12 a month, so the code MARCH2025 gets you 33% off. And at Humble Bundle, the big sellers right now are Humble Heroines, which includes Control Ultimate Edition, Beyond Two Souls, Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous, and more, and the Dragonlance D&D books, which is a bundle of 26 Dragonlance books. I'm Jamin Hatfield, and for all your video game news, stay tuned to IGN.